Welcome back to the library, dear wanderers. Today we're going to head back to Library Wing 1, the Hidden Nest, back to the first Oak's Shelf, where we'll pick up the first work we see. It was brought to the library by Troy L. Now, without further ado, to you, my love. My dearest, I'm sorry that I've taken so long to get in touch again. I wish I could have gotten in touch sooner, but I'm afraid that it just hasn't been possible. He stopped and sighed a little, closing his eyes. He was certain he could see her slightly out of the corner of his eye so long as he kept them closed. The small, sparkling flecks of gold took on a face barely visible, a small grin fluttering over her lips slightly. He was certain she was reading the letter at the moment. He chuckled softly, then turned back to it. I've been away for a long time now, I know. And I'm sorry that we've never gotten to meet properly, but it seems like such a waste to throw away the chance to speak, at the very least. I've left a small gift for you in the usual place, in addition to the book sent with the letter. I know you'll love it. She's a delightful author, Miss Radcliffe, and I just know it'll appeal to your sensibilities. He smiled a little, flicking open the front of the book again, and making the candle flame flutter slightly. He smiled at the inscription he'd placed there, as well as the signature below it. He turned his attention back to the letter. I wish you nothing but the best, my shining lady, and I hope that you will think kindly of me in spite of everything else you might know. Or think, at the very least. I can assure you, I'm nowhere near as bad as they want you to think I am, so please, be well. He signed it, then wrote, "To my shining light," on the outside before folding the pages several times down to a thin sliver of paper and sliding it into the spine of the book. He walked over and placed it on his bookshelf, sliding it into place. The next week, he'd sell the book at auction for a small sum. It would find her. Sophia stared down at the inscription, her eyebrows closing in on her hairline. And this was acquired in the lot with the new object? Gears nodded. It was. We were going to place it in the book repository for resale until we saw the inscription. What do you make of it? She looked at it carefully, frowning. To my dearest Sophia Light at Site 19, it's either a joke or an anomaly. Gears nodded again. I agree. Tests seem to indicate nothing extraordinary about the book, but we've not done the deep scans yet. The possibility of damaging the text was high enough that I wanted your input before proceeding. She opened the book, her thumb fanning the pages for a moment. As the piece of paper slipped out of the spine and into her lap, she frowned, picking it up and opening it. Her eyes slid back and forth over the letter, and when she was finished, she passed the page over the desk towards Gears. Gears? She asked. Please tell me we know someone else named Doc. A letter contained within to Dr. Sophia Light of the Foundation. I do so wonder what exactly this was doing in the Wonders Library, but perhaps that's something we'll find out at a later time. For now, we will move on to the next work. This one was brought to the library by RJB_R, who we've read a few works from before. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. Trivialities. Sanjay slowly trudged down the cobblestone alley, the gloomy sky above neatly mimicking his mood. He looked at every door for the mark, occasionally taking care to glance over his shoulder. In the past 7 months, nobody had followed him, at least none that he'd seen. The marked door turned out to be the back entrance to a dentistry parlor tucked neatly behind some stacked crates. And with a final glance to the side, Sanjay knocked on the door. A slit above the doorknob opened up.
"What's your business?"
Sanjay swallowed. To tell a whisper, not a secret. With a clank, clunk, and clink, the door was opened. Stepping inside, Sanjay stopped to take in the sights and smells. The room was a cluttered one, with broken chairs mended with parts broken off from the tables. A makeshift counter had been constructed from the same type of crate he'd seen outside, crudely painted black. The smell of cooked vegetables permeated the air. The few other patrons had already settled in their corners, making their conversations. Sanjay heard a few snippets as he headed to his usual spot.
"Heard the Grigori got with the meat-eye."
Think of what actual cabbage would be like.
I heard Damien tried some and lost his head.
Bah! Nobody loses their head. It's only a rumor they spread to discourage vegetarianism.
Sanjay settled in the left-hand corner table, the one with the third wobbliest leg. When the surly server came to take his order, he got the steamed cauliflower and stump root. Sometimes he'd order the eggplant or the carrots, but he wasn't feeling as adventurous today. Eating vegetables in a CDZ wasn't exactly Sanjay's idea of the best time, but it was a good time nonetheless. Here, nobody would pester him to eat more meat or try and ask why he had the scratches. He needed the veggies to keep the scratches away. Just had to eat and not think. His thoughts were interrupted by a loud knock on the door. The trickling of conversation seemed as though someone had turned the faucet off. There was nobody else scheduled to come in. Then, like a surge of floodwater, Elrian militiamen burst into the room from all sides. Screaming in the name of the king, they brought their broadswords down on any who tried to run. Sanjay dived into the crate pile, but it was too late. A militiaman grabbed him by the scruff of his neck and slammed him with the hilt of his sword. As everything went black, Sanjay struggled to hear the men.
"Good bust, McCanny. That's one less CDZ in Elra."
Verily, what do we do with the rat pack here?
"Send them to Biffy in Dungeon 5. We haven't had a good losing head game in a while."
All right, tell him to wait up for me, would ya?
I will, don't you worry.
And then everything went black. The first thing Sanjay could feel was the cold stone pressing on his face. It was a bit dusty, a bit grimy, with a hint of ancient history, all the classical signs of castle dungeon masonry. It all came rushing back to him, the black carriage that had pulled up to his house full of royal thugs in their cabbage-emblazoned militia uniform. Groaning, he picked himself up from the distinctive floor. It seemed to be your average prisoner cell, with the putrid foodstuff dumped by the corned and a small pit in the corner for business time. Sanjay shook his head. Why had they come for him? He had committed no crimes against the crown. As he pondered this, he suddenly became acutely aware of the sound coming from outside his imprisonment. It sounded like applause? Frowning, Sanjay put his ear up to the moldy wooden door and listened.
"Now, let's meet our next contestants."
The door swung open and Sanjay was grasped mid-fall by leather-gloved mercenaries. Before he could even gather his wits, he found himself seated at a brown, beat-up wooden desk. On either of his sides were two equally scared-looking men, staring at him pleadingly. A booming voice echoed from the front of the chamber. Welcome, Sanjay Bumsa, to Elrich's hottest dungeon game. Don't lose your head. Sanjay squeezed his eyes shut and grimaced as the cheering from hundreds of executioners washed over him. When he opened his eyes, he saw a bulk of muscle, leather, and a smiley face mask. His name tag read, Biffy Bfam. Now, these 3 lucky contestants will have a chance to win the grand prize of not being decapitated by our good friend, Execution Grandmaster Dmitry Vilchkov. The crowd roared with approval. You know the rules, folks. Our lucky contestants will each have chances to answer mega-tastic trivia inquiries to prolong their inevitable doom. But watch out, getting one question wrong makes you lose your head. Lose every head and the game is over. The man on Sanjay's left burst into tears. Now let the games begin! With a massive roar from the crows, 6 panels dropped from the ceiling labeled Assassination, Alchemy, Canomancy, Vegetables, Heretics, and Hanging. As soon as they had dropped completely, Biffy leaped to the man quivering on Sanjay's left. Wrapping his arm around the man, he pointed a ridiculously muscular arm at the panels. Choose your category, he exclaimed, grinning broadly. Please, the man begged with a hoarse whisper. I haven't seen my family in 2 weeks. I'm so hungry. Please don't kill me. Without missing a beat, Biffy slammed his fist into the man's nose, shattering it in 6 places. Please choose a category. Sputtering on the river of blood now pouring from his ruined nose, the man managed to choke out, Vegetables. The vegetables panel flipped down, revealing a picture of a bright orange carrot. Biffy bounded towards the pane and jabbed his finger to the illustration. Can you identify this vegetable? The man, sputtering on the geyser of mucus and blood gushing into his mouth, was unable to pronounce more than a few gurgling sounds. After a few moments, a bell rang out from somewhere above them. It was a church bell, and the solitary ring bellowed throughout the chamber. I'm so sorry, but you ran out of time. Looks like this unlucky contestant... The crowd finished his sentence. Lose his head! Amidst a deafening roar, Biffy grabbed the man's hair and dragged him towards Vilch's stone execution block. A deafening mixture of the man screaming, the crowd roaring, and Vilch hefting his axe was silenced by the thwack of it being brought down. Now, he may have lost out on fabulous prizes, but I'm sure our other contestants can beat his record. Biffy leaped back over to them, this time grabbing the man on the left. Are you ready? Trembling, the man nodded and pointed to the hanging panel. It plopped open, revealing a small compartment with a hangman's noose. Biffy made an exaggerated frown. I'm sorry, friend, but you've picked the daily execution bonus. Lose one of your heads, but gain 50 extra points on the next question. The man paled. Biffy snatched the rope out of the box, tugging it all the way to the man's position. Any last words for our audience at home? Please, you don't... Snap. All right, Biffy bellowed, facing the crowd again. We are left with only one lucky contestant. Can he win? The crowd went wild. No! Biffy grinned, turning to face Sanjay. We shall see. In a moment, Biffy was upon Sanjay, his muscular, crushing arm wrapped around his shoulders.
Now, lucky contestant, do you have a category to pick?
Sanjay's eyes darted across the panels before settling on assassination. I'll take assassination, he stuttered.
All right, here is your question.
Another panel flopped down with the words, "What is the average lifespan of a Revelian president?" painted in crude yellow. Sanjay gulped. 12? For a moment, Biffy only looked at them. Then, with a painfully forced show of disappointment, he turned to the crowd.
Oh, looks like he blew it, folks. I guess that's the end of our show.
Sanjay froze. No, this couldn't be happening. Even as the masked thugs grabbed his arms, his mind was racing. Every sound around him seemed to fade together. The crowd, the man, the bells.
Sorry, Sanjay, here's what you could have won.
The axe was in hand.
A new carriage.
It was hefted.
20 gold pieces.
It was thrust.
And of course, your head. Thwack.
And with that, we're going to have to wrap up our readings here, dear wanderers. Thank you very much for coming. It, as always, has been an honor reading for you. Good luck out there, and I hope to see you all next time. Remember, get yourself a nice drink of water. I'm sure you need it.